The snow fell in thick, relentless sheets that December evening, each flake a tiny witness to the cruelty unfolding on the brownstone's front steps. Maya stood there, her arms wrapped protectively around 4 tiny bundles, each one swaddled in whatever soft fabric she'd managed to grab in those final, frantic moments. 4 daughters, quadruplets, born just 3 days ago, still so fragile that their cries sounded like the mewing of kittens. Behind her, the door stood open, and through it poured not warmth, but the cold laughter of those who should have loved her most. "You really thought I'd let you stay?" Derek's voice cut through the winter air, sharp and merciless. Her ex-husband as of 2 hours ago, stood in the doorway, his mother Claudette beside him, her face twisted in disgust. 4 babies? Do you know what you've done to this family? Maya's legs trembled, still weak from the emergency C-section that had brought her daughters into the world. She could feel the stitches pulling with each slight movement, the pain a dull roar beneath the sharper agony in her heart. "Derek, please," she whispered, hating how her voice broke. "They're your daughters. Our daughters. My daughters." He laughed, a sound without humor. "You trapped me with this pregnancy. 1 baby maybe I could have handled, but 4? You've ruined everything. The expenses, the responsibility, the attention you'll need. It's all too much. My lawyer will be in touch about severing my parental rights." Claudette stepped forward, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood. Throughout Maya's 5-year marriage to Derek, his mother had made her disdain clear. Maya had been a secretary when they met, raised by a single mother who died when Maya was 20. No family money, no connections, no pedigree, everything Claudette despised. "We gave you a chance," Claudette hissed. "We took you in despite your poverty, your lack of breeding. And this is how you repay us? By producing 4. Mouths to feed, 4 college educations to fund. You did this on purpose. Probably took fertility drugs to trap my son." "I didn't," Maya started, but Claudette cut her off. "Save it. We've already filed the divorce papers. You signed them at the hospital, remember, when you were still groggy from the anesthesia?" She smiled, a cruel curl of her lips. "Derek gets everything. The house, the cars, the accounts. You get nothing. That's what you deserve." Maya did remember signing something, papers thrust at her while she was still foggy from medication, barely able to hold a pen. She'd trusted Derek, believed him when he said they were just hospital forms. "You can't do this," she said, though even as the words left her mouth she knew they were futile. The Thorntons had money, connections, lawyers who could make anything happen. She had nothing but 4 babies who depended entirely on her. "We already have." Derek's brother Marcus appeared behind them, holding garbage bags, the kind of cheap black ones used for actual trash. He tossed them onto the stoop, where they landed with soft thuds. "Your things. What we thought you might need." Maya recognized her old clothes through the thin plastic. None of the designer pieces Claudette had grudgingly allowed her to buy during better times. A few pairs of shoes, some toiletries. Not even all of the baby supplies she'd carefully prepared. What about the girls' things? The cribs, the clothes, "You mean our things?" Claudette interrupted. "Everything in this house belongs to the Thornton family. You brought nothing to this marriage, and you'll leave with nothing." One of the babies, Aria, Maya thought, though in truth she couldn't quite tell them apart yet, began to wail, a thin, desperate sound. The others joined in quickly, a chorus of need and confusion and cold. "Please," Maya begged, all pride abandoned. "At least let us stay until morning. They're so small it's freezing they could—" "Should have thought of that. Before you trapped my son." Claudette reached for the door. "There's a homeless shelter 3 blocks south. I'm sure they'll take you in. That's where people like you belong anyway." The door swung shut, and Maya heard the deadbolt slide into place with a finality that echoed in her bones. For a long moment she simply stood there, swaying slightly, her daughters crying against her chest. The snow continued to fall, already beginning to cover the garbage bags, to settle on her shoulders and the baby's blankets. Her phone was dead. She'd discovered that at the hospital when she'd tried to call her friend Shanice, And even if it worked, who would she call? Her mother was gone. She had no siblings. Her few friends from before the marriage had drifted away, discouraged by Claudette's subtle manipulations and Derek's growing distance. She was alone, completely, devastatingly alone, with 4 lives depending on her. Moving carefully, wincing with each step, Maya made her way down the brownstone steps. She picked up the garbage bags with one hand, while keeping the other arm tight around her daughters. A feat of desperation and maternal strength she wouldn't have believed possible an hour ago. The bags were lighter than expected. They really had given her almost nothing. The street was empty, most people sensibly inside on this bitter night. Maya knew the shelter Claudette had mentioned, had passed it during her marriage, always looking away from the line of desperate people waiting outside, never imagining she'd be one of them. She made it half a block before she had to stop, leaning against a brick wall, gasping. The pain from her incision was searing now, and she felt something warm and wet seeping through her clothes. Blood, probably. She was bleeding again, but she couldn't stop. The babies needed warmth, needed safety. "Miss, you all right?" Maya looked up to find an elderly black woman watching her with concern, a grocery bag in her arms. She was bundled in a worn but clean coat, her gray hair tucked under a knitted cap. Maya's voice broke. "I need to get to the shelter. My babies." The woman's eyes widened as she took in the 4 tiny bundles, their cries now weak and intermittent, a sound that was somehow worse than loud wailing. "Lord have mercy. How old are they?" 3 days. 3 days and you're out in this?" Anger flashed across the woman's face, but not directed at Maya. "Come on, baby. Shelter's full tonight. Always is when it gets this cold. But my daughter's a nurse, lives 2 blocks over. She'll know what to do." Maya wanted to refuse, wanted to say she could manage, but another wave of pain nearly dropped her to her knees. She nodded, and the woman, Mrs. Patterson, she said her name was, took one of the garbage bags and began leading her down the street. They made it to a small apartment building, up one flight of stairs that felt like climbing a mountain. Mrs. Patterson's daughter Janice took one look at Maya and immediately went into nurse mode, ushering her inside, settling her on the couch, examining the babies with quick, competent hands. "They're cold but stable," Janice said, wrapping each infant in warm blankets she pulled from a closet. "But you're bleeding badly. You need to go to the hospital." "No." Maya's voice was sharp. "No hospitals. They'll call Derek, or child services, or—" Okay. Janice held up her hands. "But I need to check your incision. And you need to tell me what happened." So Maya told her everything, watching Janice's expression shift from concern to disbelief to fury. When she finished, Janice and her mother exchanged a long look. "You can stay here tonight," Janice said finally. "Tomorrow, we'll figure something out. But right now you need rest, and these babies need to eat. Can you nurse them?" Maya nodded. The hospital had helped her establish breastfeeding before discharging her, one of the few mercies of the past 3 days. Janice showed her how to tandem feed, holding 2 babies at once, and gradually the apartment filled with the soft sounds of infants suckling, their cries finally quieted. That night, lying on Janice's couch with her daughters in a makeshift bed of couch cushions beside her, Maya stared at the ceiling and tried to process what had happened. 24 hours ago, she'd been a Thornton, with a home and a husband and a future. Now she was homeless, penniless, with 4 babies and a family that had thrown her away like garbage. But as she watched her daughters sleep, their tiny faces peaceful now, something hardened inside her. She'd survived losing her mother at 20. She'd survived 5 years of Claudette's subtle cruelty and Derek's growing indifference. She would survive this too. For them, she would survive anything. What Maya didn't know, what no one except a handful of people in the world knew, was that her mother hadn't been the struggling single parent she'd appeared to be. Margaret Chen had been the estranged only child of Chen Wei, founder of Chen Global Industries, a man whose wealth was so vast it made the Thorntons look like paupers playing dress-up. Margaret had walked away from that fortune at 18, refusing to marry the man her father had chosen, refusing to be a pawn in his business empire. She'd raised Maya in modest circumstances, working as a teacher, never speaking of the family she'd left behind, and when she died suddenly of an aneurysm, she'd left only one thing of value, a letter, sealed and stored with a lawyer, to be delivered to Maya only under specific circumstances. Those circumstances had just been met. Across the city, in a high-rise office that never truly closed, a notification pinged on a secure computer. One of the monitoring systems Margaret Chen had established before her death, a system that tracked her daughter's well-being, her legal status, her financial transactions, had just flagged multiple alerts. Divorce filing, hospital discharge with newborns, credit cards canceled, bank accounts closed. The lawyer who received the notification, Jonathan Wu, had been Margaret's friend since law school. He'd promised her he'd watch over Maya from a distance, intervening only if absolutely necessary. He stared at the alerts, his jaw tightening, and reached for his phone. "We need to find her," he said when his investigator answered. "Tonight. And prepare the documentation. It's time." But Maya, sleeping fitfully on Janice's couch, knew nothing of this. She knew only that tomorrow she would have to figure out how to survive, how to feed her daughters, how to build something from nothing. She fell asleep with her hand resting on the closest baby. Hope, she decided she would name her Hope, and tried to believe that somehow, impossible as it seemed, everything would be all right. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the city in white, transforming the streets where she'd been cast out into something almost beautiful. And in the morning, when the sun rose on her first day as a woman alone, everything would change in ways she couldn't imagine. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight, she simply held her daughters close and survived. Dawn came too quickly, gray light filtering through Janice's thin curtains. Maya woke to the sound of her daughters stirring, that particular rustling that meant they'd be crying for food within minutes. Every muscle in her body ached, and when she tried to sit up, the pain from her incision made her gasp. "Easy," Janice said, appearing with a glass of water and 2 pills. "Ibuprofen. It'll help with the pain and inflammation." Maya took them gratefully, then reached for her daughters. Feeding 4 babies was a logistical challenge she was still learning to navigate. Janice helped her position them, showing her tricks for feeding multiple infants at once, and gradually they all settled into a rhythm. "What are their names?" Mrs. Patterson asked, coming out of the bedroom dressed for the day. I was waiting to decide with Derek," Maya's voice caught. "But I think hope, grace, faith, and joy. That's what I need them to be for me. Reminders of what's good. Beautiful names for beautiful girls." Mrs. Patterson smiled, but her eyes were sad. "Baby, we need to talk about what happens next. Janice has to work tonight, and I've got my grandbabies to watch. We can't." "I know." Maya finished for her, because she couldn't bear to hear them say they couldn't help anymore. They'd already done more than she had any right to expect. "You've been so kind. I'll go to the shelter today, see what resources they have." "There might be another option," Janice said slowly. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through something. "I have a patient, older woman, lives alone in a big house in Brooklyn. Her health is declining, and she's been looking for a live-in caregiver. It doesn't pay much, but it includes room and board. Maybe I'll take it." Maya didn't hesitate. "Whatever it is, I'll take it." Janice made the call, spoke in low tones, then turned back with a cautious smile. "Mrs. Vanessa Laurent. She wants to meet you this afternoon. Can you manage the trip?" Maya nodded, even though the thought of moving again made her want to weep. She'd managed because she had no choice. By noon, she was on the subway, her daughters in a stroller Janice had borrowed from a neighbor, the garbage bags of her belongings stuffed underneath. The train rattled through tunnels, and Maya watched the other passengers, wondering if they could tell just by looking at her how far she'd fallen. A woman with a designer handbag, a man in a business suit. They all seemed to exist in a different world, one where 4 babies weren't a disaster but a blessing, where husbands didn't throw wives out into the snow. Mrs. Laurent's house was in a neighborhood Maya had never visited, a tree-lined street of Victorian homes that spoke of old money and careful preservation. The house itself was beautiful but clearly aging, like its owner, paint peeling slightly, garden overgrown, steps in need of repair. Maya stood at the door for a long moment before ringing the bell, praying this woman would give her a chance. The woman who answered was perhaps 70, with silver hair pulled into an elegant bun and eyes that missed nothing. She looked at Maya, then at the stroller with its 4 precious occupants, and something shifted in her expression. 4, she said softly. Janice mentioned you had a newborn, but 4? Yes, ma'am. Quadruplets. They're 3 days old. Maya stopped, unsure what to say, how to explain without sounding like she was begging. I can work hard, whatever you need. Cleaning, cooking, help with personal care, I'll do anything, and I promise the babies won't be a bother. I'll keep them quiet, Hush, child. Mrs. Laurent's voice was gentle but firm. Come inside before you fall over. You look like you're about to collapse. The interior of the house matched the exterior. Beautiful bones beneath years of gentle neglect. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, furniture that spoke of quality and age. Mrs. Laurent led Maya to a sitting room and gestured to a couch. Sit, feed those babies if they need it, and then you'll tell me your story, all of it. So Maya did. She'd told it once to Janice, and this second telling was somehow harder, as if repetition made it more real. Mrs. Laurent listened without interrupting, her face impassive, until Maya finished with her voice breaking and tears streaming down her face. The Thorntons, Mrs. Laurent said finally. I know of them. New money pretending to be old money. The worst kind. She stood, moved to a window, looked out at her overgrown garden. My husband died 30 years ago. We never had children. Couldn't. That's been my great sorrow, this big house echoing with emptiness. She turned back to Maya, and there were tears in her own eyes now. You need a place. I need help. But more than that, I think we might need each other. You can have the entire 3rd floor. It's 4 rooms up there. Plenty of space for you and your girls. In exchange, you'll help me with daily tasks, keep the house running. I'll pay you a small salary so you'll have your own money. Does that seem fair? More than fair. Maya could barely speak past the lump in her throat. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. 4 babies in this house will be chaos. But maybe, Mrs. Laurent smiled, and it transformed her face, made her look years younger. Maybe it's the kind of chaos this old place needs. They settled into the house that afternoon, Maya carrying her daughters up the 2 flights of stairs to the 3rd floor one at a time, Mrs. Laurent following slowly with the bags. The rooms were dusty but beautiful. A bedroom for Maya, a large space that could be a nursery, a small bathroom, and a sitting room with windows overlooking the garden. I'll help you get what you need, Mrs. Laurent said. Cribs, clothes, supplies. Consider it in advance on your salary. I'll pay you back, Maya promised. Every cent. We'll see. Mrs. Laurent waved a hand dismissively. For now, rest. You look ready to fall over. That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in days, her daughters sleeping in drawers she'd padded with blankets until cribs could be purchased, Maya allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd be okay. She didn't know that across the city Jonathan Wu had finally located her. Didn't know that he was preparing to deliver news that would change everything. Didn't know that she wasn't actually alone in the world, that she had a grandfather who'd been searching for her for years, ever since Margaret's death. All she knew was that tonight her daughters were safe and warm, and tomorrow she would wake up and keep fighting. That was enough. For now it was enough. What Maya couldn't know was that sometimes the universe, which seemed so cruel, was actually setting the stage for something extraordinary. That being cast out wasn't an ending but a beginning. That the women who seemed to have lost everything sometimes discovered they had the strength to build empires. But those revelations would come later. Tonight there was only sleep, and hope, and 4 tiny girls who would grow up knowing that their mother had walked through fire for them, and that, in the end, was its own kind of fortune.